I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs.
Now, for the first time, Ruby's eldest daughter, Shari, is telling her story in a new memoir, The House of My Mother.
Sometimes I'll see myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, I look like her or I sound like her, but I don't want to be anything like her.
Hello everyone, welcome to This Week in Tyranny. Thank you for joining me. My name is Conrad Rogas. I am hosting this show, which is a show where we bring nuance and make simple everything that seems confusing. It's not always the weekly events though. And this is one of those weeks where we're going to dive into a seemingly distant story. We already did dive into this story. We've done it twice now. This is the third episode that is really the finality. So it's episode 121, Sunday the 30th of March. And let's get right into it. As I've mentioned, it's my finality of the three-part breakdown of the Ruby Franke case. And very likely this is the last time I ever talk about it, and that is for two reasons, both of which I'm going to highlight. One is because there is another Ruby Franke story playing out as we speak, somewhere. We don't know where it is it's going on. These things are not unique to Utah. They're not unique to the 8 passengers and this whole thing that went down. It happens everywhere. This is just a story that made national news, and that's due to several factors. That this story was highlighted and others are not, right? The YouTube channel, the surroundings, the community, the personal aspects, and all these connections. This one got the national news spotlight and other stories don't get it. But child abuse, child exploitation is astonishingly universal. It's everywhere. So there comes a time where we have to leave the case in the past. We have to learn from the case and then make the shift toward prevention, addressing the causal factors of what makes abusers out of human beings. See, I'm not dropping it, right? It's not dropping the case and then we're on to different subjects. I'm still on it, but at a certain point, you have to move on from the case. Addressing the structures, addressing the causal factors, right? What we need to do to point the finger at these abusers and point the finger then at ourselves, because these institutions and structures protect them. We need to stop protecting them and stop protecting these institutions, point the finger at ourselves. Now what we need to do to stop it and expose it. That's reason one. Reason two why I'm not going to talk about this again likely is because this is the end of the story, because it's no longer the Ruby Franke story. This is now the Shari Franke story. And that's how it goes. I alluded to that in previous episodes, but let me just justify it before I dive in. It's not to single her out, Shari, the oldest daughter, not to single her out from the other her other five siblings, because each one of these children has a story to be told, that could be told. So it's not to downplay that, but to highlight Shari, because her storyline has become really well defined, intentionally so. She did it. She's been open and candid about this. That contrast between her and her mom. She wants to be a mom and she wants to be nothing like Ruby Franke. So I'm going to play on that contrast and talk about very crucial key things. Most importantly, breaking the cycle. This is what it's all about. This is where the story of child abuse ends. Not with just the offender going away. That should be a lesson to all of us. No matter what cause we stand for, the righting of that injustice is not just with the end of that injustice inflicted. That's not the end. That's not it. You have to push past that moment. Okay, the injustice has stopped. Good. The person is held accountable. Good. That's not it. It's only made right when the victim lives their life in a way that they are free from the damage done to them. That it's not affecting their relationships in the future, right? They're really free from the damage. They're also then free from behaving in a way that damages others. That's the thing, not becoming like your abuser. And over time, when that happens, they stop being the victim. We no longer would even refer to them as the victim. the victim role erodes. You no longer would have to define yourself in reference of that thing you went through, right? Like, I'm a former drug addict. I don't say that all the time, right? Only for the purposes of highlighting my past experiences, but I don't think of myself that way. That's only one of the things that I've been. The victim role erodes and dissolves because when it truly is corrected, the injustice, it no longer has any power over you. The injustice is done, and that's it. Breaking the cycle, it's done on two levels: the individual and the societal. And Shari's been unspoken on both of those levels. And I'm going to play some footage that displays both of those levels of action. By the way, speaking of playing footage, I apologize for the way I had to do it last week. It's very hard to use the footage from the Ruby Franke documentary because Disney auto-blocks it. This is what happened on YouTube. I was hit with an automatic copyright removal. So then I had to scramble away to play it, right? So I had to go back to editing, 3 hours of rendering, all of this, because it was important to the points that I was making. And without you seeing that, it wouldn't work. So if I'm not able to show a clip this time, I apologize in advance, but I'm just going to comment on it anyway so I could cut it out if I need to. I likely will only play one, and I apologize for the inconvenience if I can't. It's not really a big topic. I don't want to digress, but I think I totally don't buy modern copyright laws. This is not real ownership. It's real censorship. That they try to make it about money, that like we're taking money off the plate of Walt Disney executives and actors because of pirating. No, I won't get into it. We're just going to run right through that. As it pertains to the individual breaking the generational cycle of abuse, meaning having gone through it but not allowing it to affect you, not allowing the wrong way that you've been treated affect you, how you treat others, not treating others the same way that you've been treated. Shari Franke has been candid about that. And interestingly, the word candid means honest, sincere, and straightforward. It comes from the Old French word candida, which comes from the Latin candidum, and it means white. It means pure, and it means innocent. This idea of a bright, gentle glow is where we get the word candle from, right? Candle, candid. And then a synonym for the word candid is frank. The word frank, to be frank, it's literally in the definition of the word candid. The word frank means free, candid, or outspoken. And then frank comes from the Old French word franc, which means free. So frank means free, and it's literally in her name, Shari Franke, Frank with an E. So this individual story, the Shari Franke story, it goes from growing up in a community that's so devoted to purity, innocence, right? That white candle of faith. But then being raised by a mother who became the opposite of that. She became the opposite. Everything that is not honest, not open, not genuine, none of that. Then being exploited and deprived of freedom, disconnected from her family. All that happened to her, but finally it's a story of the redemption. It's a redemption of innocence, being open and forthcoming about the experience, and it's that gentle victory. Not the victory where you stamp on somebody's neck as they draw their last breath. It's the triumph of not being taken down. You come out battled and bruised, but you walk out with your head raised high. That's how I see Shari, okay? So let's play this. Let's hear some of that.
Narratives in the media kind of pinpoint Jody as the reason that things went wrong and Ruby was good until Jody came. But I wanted to show that that wasn't the case and that wasn't my experience.
Jody Hildebrandt was her mother's mentor and her family's counselor who moved into the family home. Shortly after, her father moved out. Shari says she was cut off from the family when she left for college.
It wasn't until I left for college that I, started looking up, what is a cult? What is spiritual abuse? What is emotional abuse? And it kind of all like checked the boxes with things that Ruby had done.
In August 2023, a disturbing reality was revealed. Shari's younger brother escaping, going to a neighbor's home.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs.
This 911 call leading to her mother and Hildebrandt's arrests.
What was hard is that I was kind of learning information about the case, like as the world was finding out. I wanted to be told first, like I was the family.
Are you proud of your little brother?
I mean, I think yes, the whole world is proud of him.
Franke and Hildebrandt both pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child abuse against the 2 youngest children. They will serve at least 4 years in prison.
I don't think I'll ever get an apology. I don't need an apology. I've, worked through that. Lots of therapy, lots of inner work, and, again, whether she apologizes or not, it's not gonna change my healing.
And she does write to you from prison.
She wrote to me once, and yeah, she hasn't written since. I think she gets the idea that we don't want to hear from her.
Kevin, your father, who you refer to as Kevin in the book, you are speaking to him, and what's that relationship like now?
That relationship is really important to me, and that broke my heart, to be kind of disowned by that and not be able to speak to him.
Kevin Franke telling ABC News he's proud of his daughter. The recently engaged Shari telling us she is focused on rebuilding her family relationships and the future.
Do you want to be a mother?
I do want to be a mother, for sure. I told myself when I was young, even before Jody, like, I'm not going to be like Ruby, I'm going to be a better mother.
For Good Morning America, Eva Pilgrim, ABC News, New York.
Before we even talk about her, that footage you see there of the youngest boy walking up to his neighbor's house, when you see the full unedited video of that, which is easily found online, you could play it, you can see him slowly ring the doorbell and then wait a short amount of time and then turn around and start walking away. And by the time the neighbor opens the door, he's almost back across the street. By the time the neighbor opens the door and calls him back, to me, it's absolutely chilling. It's how close that interaction was to not happening, because he almost left, and then the neighbor opens the door and calls him back. It's like a movie. This was like a movie. And who knows what would have happened if the neighbor didn't open that door, if he wasn't there to open that door and then ask him what's going on, and took an interest, and he wasn't scared, and the neighbor took over that situation as he should have done. You never know what would have happened. That's the thing, you just don't know. He could have been found, you don't know. But the suffering of those kids at that time, it came to an end with an escape. That's what that boy did. He risked his life in a use of force. He broke the rules. It was a heroic act, right? And then it was the asking of help. Of that boy. He asked for help, and then the offering of help by the neighbor, being available. Let us remember that, okay? How important it is to be available and aware in the world, ready for something like this. You may get the opportunity to save somebody's life today. It's crazy. We never think that it could happen, but so many examples of it happening. Then you may also need to risk your life today for yourself or for your loved ones, right? I just hope we really remember that, not just for this episode, but like every day moving forward. Now, when Shari talks about not needing an apology, I think that beautifully highlights a key part of the individual breaking the cycle. There isn't a way to make what happened to you right through an apology or getting some kind of closure from them. I've heard that you do get closure in the story coming to light, right? The abuser being held accountable, having that justice done, yes. But as far as why they did it, what you could have done differently, I think those are fruitless, exhausting pursuits. I understand why people do it. I understand people try to do that, to kind of go back in time and make that experience right. But this is the formula right here that Shari's got. It was just wrong what happened, and that's it. The people who did it are gone, and I don't need anything from them. If we can get to that point, that's the best thing for us, and that's the best thing for our loved ones and our relationships moving forward. And really, as far as the individual work, the attitude, the approach, there isn't even a lot for me to add to what Shari said. I'm going to let that speak for itself. I'm going to let her speak for herself on that and move on. And I'm going to move on to the societal aspect of breaking the cycle of abuse. Kind of more of my bread and butter, right? This week in Tyranny. And this is where Shari Franke is outspoken about her opposition to family vlogging. Okay? Not child abuse directly in the way we know it, but just that. Just putting your kids on camera and millions of views and having them be public figures. She spoke in front of a Utah legislative committee about child influencers, and I'm going to play it because it gets interesting, as it's always interesting, when you have the intersection of children, laws, and authority. It's never simple when it comes to kids. And it should be that way. But anyway, let's see.
Right. Thank you for having me today. My name is Shari Franke. My mother, Ruby Franke, is a prominent family vlogger that was arrested last year for child abuse. I don't come today as the daughter of a felon, nor as a victim of an abnormally abusive mother. I come today as a victim of family vlogging. My goal is not to present any idea of a solution to this problem, but to shed light on the ethical and monetary issues that come from being a child influencer. When children become stars in their family's online content, they become child influencers. It is more than just filming your family life and putting it online. It is a full-time job with employees, business credit cards, managers, and marketing strategies. The difference between family vlogging and a normal business, however, is that all the children are employees. Children from before they are born to the day they turn 18 have become the stars of family businesses on YouTube, Instagram, and other social media platforms. Utah is specifically a hotspot for family content due to the LDS culture around family and the goal to share the church with the world. We also have large families, which makes family content more lucrative. Specifically, many parents film their regular family life as an online video blog called a vlog. But I want to be clear that there is never, ever a good reason for posting your children online for money or fame. There is no such thing as a moral or ethical family vlogger. At first, family vlogging is an alluring business that can bring high revenue. For my family, it became the primary source of income, as is often the case with most full-time family vloggers. Many child influencers are paid for their work, as I was, and this money has helped me in my adult life. However, this payment was usually a bribe. For example, we'd be rewarded $100 or a shopping trip if we filmed a particularly embarrassing moment or an exciting event in our lives. Or other times, simply going on vacation was expected to be payment enough because most kids don't get to go on regular and expensive trips. Never mind the fact that the child's labor is actually what paid for the vacation or trip. There is no law in place to guarantee that child influencers get any money from their work. If a family account does not become an LLC, parents are taxed heavily for paying their children. But parents also receive tax write-offs for the regular clothes that they wear, the gas money used to drive places, and even the houses they live in. Anything that is filmed can be written off. And even after registering their business as an LLC, there is no guarantee that children will get paid. Any payment that does happen is under the table with no paper trail. And how do we determine how much a child should make from appearing in family content? What price is worth giving up your childhood? But despite any monetary payment children may receive, don't let this excuse the 24/7 labor that these children are subjected to. As a child, I was fully aware that I was an employee. The business was successful when I was happy or when I shared my hardships with the world. Some of our most popular videos were when my eyebrow was accidentally waxed off and the whole world saw a crying teenager when I just wanted to mourn in private. Or the time I was violently ill and got the leading role in the video that day. My friends became scarce because dates were filmed and none of my friends wanted to be on camera. The camera never stops and there is no such thing as a break from filming. At the time, I tell you I had a choice in what was filmed, but I've come to learn that every child influencer, in a way, suffers from Stockholm Syndrome. Most child influencers would probably tell you they have full control over what is posted, but the reality is that their parents bribe and shame them into posting their most vulnerable moments. In fact, many child influencers may tell you that they enjoy their work because of the monetary perks they receive or the fun experiences that they can have. After all, what child would say no to a fun vacation or shopping spree if all they needed to do was film an embarrassing moment? But as children, we do not understand the consequences of filming our lives and posting it for the world to see. We cannot give consent to our parents to post our lives. In any other context, it is understood that children cannot give consent, but for some reason, people think family vlogging is different. I did not realize the impact that filming as a child would have on me now. My social media became flooded with rumors of having sexual relations with my own brother, to being called a baby birthing machine at the age of 13. All these things have stuck with me, and I will forever live between the ages of 13 to 17 in many of my viewers' minds. In addition, pedophiles stalk the internet, specifically seeking out child influencers. I promise you that the parents are aware of these predators and choose to post their children anyway. I understand that this is a big issue to tackle, and I am not asking you to ban family vlogging, though that is my end goal. I also understand that as Utahns, we don't appreciate big government overreach. But when it comes to protecting children, it should be a bipartisan issue. The only people harmed by child influencer laws are the parents exploiting their children. While this may not seem like an issue now, as child influencers in Utah continue to grow up, I foresee there will be legal crises, with these children realizing that vlogging has brought severe emotional distress, or these kids may realize they don't have an appropriate amount of money to show for their labor. After all, how does that child know how much they should have made versus what their parents may or may not have paid them? Let's deal with this now before we reach that point. But even despite a good paycheck, I want to be absolutely clear that there is no amount of money that can justify selling your soul as a child to the world. In no other industry would we justify unregulated child labor with a huge paycheck, and we should not do that here. If I could go back and do it all again, I'd rather have an empty bank account now and not have my childhood plastered all over the internet. No amount of money I received has made what I've experienced worth it. While I don't have all the answers nor many feasible solutions for this problem, I am proud to be one of the first child influencers in the state of Utah to speak against this issue. I don't want people to look at me and blame my unique circumstances with a mother in prison to the Franke criminal case. Family vlogging ruined my innocence long before Ruby committed a crime. I promise you that my experiences are not unique and are happening to child influencers all over Utah and the country. So let's tackle this issue before it becomes a bigger crisis than it already is. Thank you.
Where do we start, right? First of all, privacy is a fundamental right. When you go outside, it's a different story. I don't think, I don't even like these laws that you can't be recorded, you know, like on the street, you can't record somebody without their permission. I think it's just like the copyright laws. It's censorship. But a child in their house, a child has a right to privacy. These embarrassing moments that she talks about, a teenage girl going bra shopping, this is horrendous to me. These personal details being revealed in front of the whole world, not just their classmates and their peers, the whole world. All different age ranges. No, the parents don't have a right to do this, even though it's their house, their camera, their life too, but they don't have a right to do this. Now, am I saying that then the police have a right to kick the door down and take the parents to jail because they're recording their child? I'm not saying that either. And this is why it's so important to talk about children's rights and make this a point. Bring to light the despicable things that are done to kids, because in actuality, in the real world, you're born inherently with property rights. But as you're growing up, you can't fully exercise them, right? How does a newborn baby exercise their property rights? It's up to their mom to protect them, to know them, to interpret them, right? How are you going to enforce property rights for children who are, basically totally dependent on the mom at that point? But children do have all the rights that we have. They don't just grow it. They don't take them on as they get older. They already have them. You have them at birth. Rights have to be birth rights. You can't acquire a right. you're already born with them. This is very fundamental part of natural law. So even though somebody else is paying the bills, that child still has those property rights. And that in itself, it's not very controversial, right? But it does get controversial. As controversial as it gets is just when we talk about Shari influencing the lawmakers, because she's, not trying to get any legislation passed directly in that speech, but she is trying to influence these legislators to pass laws to create restrictions on family vloggers and child influencers. So obviously, do I support any kind of government restrictions whatsoever? No. But we are in a long-term incremental process to abolish the government, abolish the ancient, obsolete system of central government authority. Until we do that, right, we're not just going to do it in one step. At least I'm not. We're existing under these conditions, and while we do exist under these conditions, where the government exists, I fully support people like Shari influencing the government, demanding. This is the thing, not asking, not petitioning, not begging. I'm talking about influencing and demanding that legislators, executives, and administrators do their job. We have to tell them, do your job. And it's not hypocrisy. It's not compromising my principles for me. Right? I'm saying, do what you claim to be this person. You're getting paid to do this. Do your job. That's what they need to be told. So, influencing the government to direct these resources that come from the people anyway, right? This tax revenue, all of this stuff. Direct these resources toward benefiting the people. And why shouldn't she do it? Why should a young Mormon girl like Shari not put the heat on politicians to make it harder for these family vloggers to operate? Just keep your children out of your damn vlogs. I really feel this way. You have a right to record anything in your world, of course. But when this becomes something systematic that robs children of their childhood, and you're going to force them to pretend, you're going to force them to make faces for the thumbnail, it's just abuse. It is. It's more than just bribing them to go to the dentist or clean up their room. This is something that's going to make them feel like an object. It's going to make them feel not human. It's going to make them feel used up, deprived of dignity. It seems like even by the language that you have to use to describe this stuff, it's violation. It's like digital rape. This child vlogging stuff. The interesting implication is, where does that leave child actors? This is what I thought. Because if we say child vlogging is immoral, and I agree that it's immoral, then wouldn't we have to say that child acting is immoral too? In almost every case. Unless the child really wants to do it, right? Like, kid loves to play the piano. He wants to perform it in front of the world. Are you going to not let him do it just because they're a child? No. Like, the problem is, how can you determine? Because children are so often trained to lie. They're told to lie by their parents, to pretend they like something for their family, for their parents. But I think the answer to determine whether or not, something is done through coercion and manipulation, or it's done organically and with consent, I think the answer is to ask the child. I know that's controversial. A lot of people won't agree with that. They'll either say that children can't, I don't even want to use the word consent to not give the wrong idea of what I'm talking about here, but there's this idea that children can't make important decisions. And then people also say, on the other hand, that you can't even believe what they say. And I think it's bullshit, honestly. I believe what children say. I don't buy this idea of children making all these false accusations. I think when it comes to, where you have a court battle where there's an allegation that one parent is abusing the child, it's like almost a foregone conclusion that they don't accept what the child says. Why don't we ask the kid who he wants to be with? I bet if they asked the Franke kids, when they were over there locked in Jody Hildebrand's house, they would have said, yeah, no, we don't want to be there. Now, interestingly, on the other side, I've actually had this happen to me where it was a boy who was around 7 or 8 at the time. This is somebody who I've known since he was born, you know, like a very close family friend. It's basically family to me. But we were all in the car with his brothers and my mom, actually. And he said something like, "Oh, yeah, I saw Connor drinking a beer in the car, smoking cigarettes." And we joke around like that. But it was a very serious accusation right at the time. Like, he said it very seriously. You couldn't tell he was joking. But see, in a situation like that, you just have to ask like 2 to 5 follow-up questions and scrutinize the story. And that's what we did. That's the way this ended with me just showing that this was just like a funny, whimsical comment and not an actual record of something that happened. And I don't mean it in a way like, "Oh, you got this part of the story wrong. You said it was 3:30, but it was actually 4:30," like the way they do in interrogations, you know. I'm saying just realistically, I really think you can tell when children are telling the truth, because they will tell you very calmly and they will tell you the same thing again and again. They're not making those stories up. And I don't think we believe children at all as a society. Anyway, as much as that idea of like having laws that prohibit children from being in movies, as much as I don't agree with having these laws like that, then again, when you think about what we've heard about child actors and how they're exploited, not just financially, how they're sexually exploited and abused, and think about child actors and how they grow up, it's tough to even defend the existence of having children in movies and commercials. Like, there's such an obvious difference between child sport competition and like a child beauty pageant. You know, it's very clear that we're talking about the second one being the problem, the beauty pageant. You know, I wonder if others feel the way I do about it. I think it's horrific. It's tough. This is kind of like a very ambitious area of This Week in Tyranny, because I don't think there are super easy solutions to this. There are easy solutions to most of the things I talk about, not this. But I know that we at the very least need to make people feel very, very uncomfortable about using children for commercial gain. That's my ultimate point. Whether or not we can make some kind of an accusation of abuse, even if not, this is right on the boundary. This is pushing the line. So if you're recording your children, you're using them for commercial gain, you're living off of them, tread lightly, motherfuckers, because you're on the cutting edge. You know, children need love and care. They don't need to be in the corporate world where the bottom line is what matters. We need to think about how that affects adults, fully grown adults, let alone children who are sensitive and fragile. But back to the matter at hand. I love Shari's defense of the children's right to privacy. And I love that she says, hey, I'm not saying ban them, because she makes that clear. She's not saying that she is asking for a total ban. All she's asking for is to pay the children for their work. And she's kind of putting the onus on them. Like, if you're going to do this, okay, do it, but you better pay them. And then, of course, that is a paradox in itself for governors, because then they have to allow child labor, and it's, of course, child labor is not allowed. So it forces them to make an actual moral statement, which the justice system avoids at all costs. Nobody makes any kind of moral statements anymore, right? It's all about loopholes and technicalities, and but no, make a moral statement. She's forcing them to do that. I love that, but even to take a step back from that idea of paying the children, they should actually pay the children. Forget the child labor laws. Pay them. It's a profession. They generate revenue. They're just like porn stars. They generate revenue. You got to pay them. So she advocates putting that money in a trust fund for the children. Well done. I agree. Do that. Instead of making these laws that are going to restrict and they're going to, they're going to put anyone in jail who breaks the law. How about just asking for economic justice, and then that problem of family vlogging will, I think, will be largely dealt with if we just force them to pay these kids. And we should pay them more. You should pay them more. It's like somebody that works, like climbs like 500-foot tall towers to repair things. You don't just pay them $30 an hour. You pay them like $3,000 an hour. Because you're risking these children. They're risking their future. This affects their future relationships. So you guys put the monetary value. Tell me how much a marriage and a family is worth. 1 million, 2 million. Now we're talking. All right, we put this onus on them. Because it's really not about the government actions that will or will not be done. It's just about conveying formally what is right and what is wrong. That's why I like that she gets up there. And Shari, she's actually not asking for more rules. She's actually breaking the rules here. It's a rule that is commonplace, but it's unwritten anywhere. It's an unwritten rule, and it's a sentiment that so many people are loyal to. It's this idea that parents can do whatever they want with their children. Something that I completely disagree with. No, you can't. You can't do anything just because they're your children. You can't tell them when to go to the bathroom and when not to. You can't demand a performance from them 7 days a week. You can't monetize them and not pay them. It doesn't matter if you feed them and spend all your money on them. Doesn't matter. That's not part of the deal. These are not resources. This is not your property. This is an independent being. Although their subsistence their sustenance is dependent on you. The being inside that is still developing is independent of you. But the way the rules of mainstream society go, it's, again, this is unwritten, but only adults get privacy. That's the idea. You only really have rights once you're 18. That's how it goes. Okay, I understand that this is the way they had to choose an arbitrary cutoff. What's the difference between 17 and 18? Who knows? There is no objective difference there other than they just chose an arbitrary cutoff point. It's not based in neurology or anything. But otherwise it wouldn't work. So that's just the way it is, right? Those are these unwritten rules that Shari is breaking here. She's breaking these unwritten rules to talk about what is the actual principle behind this now. Let's think about principles. These children are employees, so they should be rewarded like adult employees. They shouldn't be rewarded less, for sure. But this is not the first time in Shari's life that she is, breaking the rules. In the last episode, I talked about this key moment. What I saw is the key moment one of the two key moments in the Ruby Franke story. After Shari went off to college and got kicked out of the house, and then so did Kevin, the dad, Shari sent messages to her dad saying, "I love you and I miss you." But of course, Kevin was under that fear, that coercion, that he is not supposed to communicate with Ruby or the children at all. So he sent her a heart, but then he pulled the heart back as to like erase the evidence, right? Or he second guessed himself. Whatever he was trying to do. The point being there is that they both want the same thing. Shari and her dad, all they want is just for the family to be back together. But he chose the fear and he chose the obedience. And then Shari, at this point in the documentary, she said she was thinking at the time, "What are you doing? Pull your head out of your ass and come back." And what mature words that totally apply to that situation. Very simple. She wants courage from the dad. This is what was necessary at the time. But they didn't get courage from the dad. They didn't get courage until they got it from the youngest boy that day. But this is what Shari was doing. knowingly or not. She was inspiring heroic behavior, not obedient asceticism, not following the rules, whether they were Ruby's rules or Jody's rules or God's rules, it doesn't matter. But it was actually to break the rules, break the taboos for her, for their family, for love, right? To follow oppressive laws is no virtue. But as we know, sadly, no heroic behavior followed. But Shari persisted. She actually called the police to Ruby's house because she heard from the neighbors that they were concerned about what was going on. She called the police to Ruby's house where the other children were. Now this part I do want to play. I hope I'll be able to play because this is one of the family's neighbors who called Child Family Services. They called DCFS. But they, when they came to the house, could not do anything because there were no visible signs of abuse that she saw at the time. And this is this woman who was on the phone talking with someone, speaking about how regretful she is that she was honest and didn't tell Family Services, that didn't lie to them, that she should have told them, yes, there are clear and obvious signs. Just to be the catalyst for action, just to step in there, because as soon as there was contact, it would have been revealed what was going on. But legally, civilly, criminally, they didn't have that threshold. So it made me emotional to see this. This is like one of the very few parts of this whole documentary that made me get emotional, and I want to share it with you.
So I remember one conversation with a DCFS worker, and she asked me, well, do you see any signs of abuse? And I said, no, I didn't see any physical signs of abuse. She just said they needed to see some physical evidence for them to be able to step in.
I got a call from the caseworker who just said, I'm so sorry, we have to close this case. She said, personally, I just want you to know, I'm really concerned, but there's, nothing that we can do.
And from that point on, I never saw the kids go outside again.
Never. It's like lockdown.
You need to get a surgical knife. You need to put the kid out and surgically go in and find the infection.
I realized I should have lied and told them that the kids were being harmed and I could see it. I really regret not saying that. I didn't know. Yeah, I wish I had lied.
So she says she should have lied and said I could see bruises. And this, again, is the thing about breaking the rules. Sometimes lying is the right thing to do. Sometimes telling the truth is the wrong thing to do. And sometimes calling the police is the right thing to do, But it's a beautiful thing, wonderful thing, when women inspire breaking rules and breaking regulations, making exceptions for them. See, we all want to be an exception to someone. We want to be someone in someone else's life that's going to make an exception for us. And I think one of the most powerful things a woman can say in her life is, fight for me. The way Shari did, not literally, but this is what she was saying. And hey, I'm not just talking about the pretty girls, okay? For everybody, I'm not just talking about the pretty girls. Like you. Everyone is a daughter to someone. I'm talking universal, right? Like you're not, nobody's excluded from this conversation. This applies to all of us. It's a big chaotic world out there, and it's way too easy to forget how much we actually all have in common. So when I talk about these qualities, and I talk about Shari and these qualities of a woman, it's like, don't think that I'm not talking about you, because I am. I'm talking about you. These shared experiences that connect us, it's universal. We all have these, we've played these family roles. And courage is a requirement for life. Courage is not just the thing that happens in extreme situations. It's a daily thing. So when Kevin Franke's younger daughter in that other situation was pleading for him not to leave, And then here, when Franke was telling him she loves and misses him, that should have inspired the heroic behavior in him. But anyway, we said enough about that last episode. I want to focus on the women because, in my personal view, women are innate rule breakers. They are rule breakers. Men are creatures of habit, generally. Like, once a guy has his pattern, his routine, his way of doing things, they consistently follow their patterns. That's what they do. They get comfortable with it, and they're very content just doing that. Okay. Women, more so, on the other hand, they love to break routines. Maybe this is why I relate so much, because I also like to break routines. But I'm also a creature of habit as well. People say this in a denigrating way, but women are capricious. I don't view it as a bad thing. Sometimes we as men roll our eyes at it, of course, but it's a powerful force too. Imagine if this force was directed against the larger authority, right? Instead of just being directed somewhere within the household in like petty disagreements. Imagine if women actually pushed back against a real authority in large numbers, I drove to Wisconsin yesterday, and it was a nice open road. So I'm over here driving 80 to 90, and I see the speed limit. It was 55. And then under the speed limit sign, I see the little sign, minimum 45. 45 mile an hour minimum speed. And I've seen this thing before, but at the time I was just feeling very open and like observant and contemplative. And when I saw this thing, I just thought, what an insult. What an insult, that sign. Not only the fact that the speed limit is 55 on a highway. Clearly it's not meant to be a legitimate limit. It's just made so low so that when you get pulled over going 70, then it feels like justified to give you a $200 ticket for going 15 over. This is what it is. It's changing the goalposts, the boundaries and guidelines to make it seem like you did something wrong. You were going 15 over. No, you weren't going 15 over. You were going appropriately fast. I was going I was going faster than than would be I guess than a Sunday stroll, But the more offensive thing is the minimum. The minimum blew my mind. How do we get a range of 10 miles an hour to drive in between? Are we really expected to behave like robots in a single file line? I mean, we might as well have self-driving cars at that point. Well, you can't go more than 55 because then you're breaking the law, but then they expect you to go no lesser than 45. I don't think you should ever go less than 45. Right, unless you're getting off or onto the highway. But the point is being boxed in. I hate that feeling of being boxed in. And this is what is done to all women. This is what is done. Men too, in some ways, especially nowadays. Men do get boxed in. That's a whole other issue. But I'm talking about what girls they've always been told. Sit like this, don't eat like this. It's not ladylike. Make sure you're very nice. You smile. You make him feel like a man. Be nice, even if he's wrong. Be nice to him. Be grateful. Say thank you. Don't say anything rude. Don't raise your voice. Right? And all that stuff is nice. But if we hammer it to girls from when they are young, then they're not going to do it because they actually want to. They're just being ordered to do it. They're being conditioned to do it. Just like that 55 mile an hour speed limit with the 45 minimum. When can a girl ever just let her hair down and enjoy herself in the world is what I think. But then I think this is where we've gone wrong again, because now in many households the rules have gone completely out the window and girls don't have to do traditional girl things. They don't even have to be girls if they don't want to. You know what I mean? Well, that's good, but the trauma and control, it's never actually been healed. This is the problem. It's not really breaking the cycle. You've taken off the rules and regulations, but there will be new conventions that will function as rules and regulations because the trauma hasn't been healed. Not for the parents and not for the children. So you can remove the controls, but the issues are still going to persist. And this is why, despite feminism, women are further than ever from true empowerment. Quote that one. That's for sure. Further than ever. Because the oppression is still there on an individual and societal level. It's just coming from different directions. And actually the fact that it is coming from, it's omnidirectional. It's coming from all different directions. Not so much from their fathers and husbands. Because at least then there was a way to, for a girl to be rebellious. In the world it was simpler. Now it's like, what is she supposed to be rebellious about? Everybody's telling her she could do anything. Guys are lining up to subscribe to the OnlyFans. But seriously, it's even worse now because it's almost a decentralized central authority where the pressures on women, the oppression of women is as strong as ever. It's different now. Women do it to each other, or it's in social media, or I really don't want to go too far into that and kind of stay close to home and focus on Shari. But we can take it all the way there. Because there's no getting away from this issue. It's everywhere. Now, why has the trauma not been healed? Why are women going to continue to struggle? Because we've not been frank. We haven't been frank. Not with ourselves, not with each other. We haven't been honest. So the story is going to keep repeating unless we make it our own story. And this is where Shari comes in. That's the message from these 3 episodes. It's the conclusion. Living your life, not anyone else's life. And then caring about the wrongs that were done to you. Caring that they're not done to your children and not done to anybody else's children. Not done anywhere else in the world. That's the solution. Whatever happened to you, you don't like that, make sure it doesn't happen again. I don't want young men to grow up living a Scarface, Godfather caricature for 10 years and then go to jail or become addicts. I don't want people to do that. I don't want guys to grow up being like thinking that to be masculine you have to be this crazy movie character. Whatever your thing is that you care about, live your life and try to help the next generation because you have a story to tell. So, but Shari's not going around telling people that she's going to show you how it's done. That's the thing. She's not going to be like Ruby and try to be the example of what a mom should be the example of what to do, what a woman should be. Anytime you make those kind of proclamations, it's very hard to live up to them. She's just kind of living it privately, and that's what it's all about. So I'm not going to do it either. I'm not going to come on here and tell you that you should be like Shari, that she's doing all the right things, and you should try to live out her story. No, it's hers. It's her story. She wrote a memoir, she spoke to advance societal change, and now she's on to a private family life. That I think we can all aspire to. We can all aspire to that. And so that's the way the Franke story ends. And it's actually, what makes it a truly happy ending, it is a happy ending, is what's really happy about it is that we got the Shari Franke story and there are still 4 or 5 great stories yet to be told just in this family. And there's yours. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next week on This Week in Tyranny.
Yes, what is self-sacrifice? You say that you do not like the altruism by which we live. You like a certain kind of Ayn Randist selfishness.
I would say that I don't like is too weak a word. I consider it evil. And self-sacrifice is the precept that man needs to serve others. in order to justify his existence, that his moral duty is to serve others. That is what most people believe today.
Well, yes, we're taught to feel concerned for our fellow man, to feel responsible for his welfare, to feel that we are, as religious people might put it, children under God and responsible one for the other. Now, why do you rebel? What's wrong with this philosophy?
But that is what, in fact, makes man a sacrificial animal. That man must work for others, concern himself with others, or be responsible for them. That is the role of a sacrificial object. I say that man is entitled to his own happiness and that he must achieve it himself, but that he cannot demand that others give up their lives to make him happy. And nor should he wish to sacrifice himself for the happiness of others. I hold that man should have self-esteem.
And cannot man have self-esteem if he loves his fellow man? What's wrong with loving your fellow man? Christ, every important moral leader in man's history, has taught us that we should love one another. Why, then, is this kind of love, in your mind, immoral?
It is immoral if it is a love placed above oneself. It is more than immoral, it's impossible. Because when you are asked to love everybody indiscriminately, that is, to love people without any standard, to love them regardless of the fact of whether they have any value or virtue, you are asked to love nobody.